Hello, welcome to our video series celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Pura Belpré Award. My name is Cecilia, and I'm a writer for Latinxs and Kidlit and the children's buyer for East City Bookshop, an independent bookstore in Washington, D.C.
And I'm Sonia, and I'm also a writer for the Latinx and Kidlit blog, and I'm a writer and educator in New York City.
The Pura Belpré Award, established in 1996, is presented to a Latinx writer and illustrator whose work best portrays, affirms, and celebrates the Latinx cultural experience in an outstanding work of literature for children and youth. It is co-sponsored by the Association for Library Service to Children and the Young Adult Library Services Association, divisions of the American Library Association, and the National Association to Promote Library and Information Services to Latinos and the Spanish-speaking, Reforma, an ALA affiliate.
The award is named after Pura Belpré, the first Latina librarian at the New York Public Library. As a children's librarian, storyteller, and author, she enriched the lives of Puerto Rican children in the U.S.A. throughout her pioneering work of preserving and disseminating Puerto Rican folklore.
Today, we have two amazing Belpré award-winning writers with us to talk about their work. Jenny Torres Sanchez is the author of 2021 Pura Belpré Young Adult Honor Book, We Are Not From Here. And joining her is Meg Medina, author of 2014 Pura Belpré Author Award for Yaqui Delgado Wants to Kick Your Ass, and the 2016 Pura Belpré Author Honor for Mango, Abuela, and Me. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you. Pleasure.
So this is the anniversary, the 25th anniversary of the Belpré Award. And we want to start off by asking you, what does this award mean to you, or why is it special to you? Meg, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I just feel like the Pura Belpré Award, I think for all of us who are recognized with it, it's so meaningful, I think, in a deep personal way. It's always nice to get awards, you know, across any award, right? It's always welcome. But there's something really special about getting an award that has to do with your roots, you know, with who your parents were and your grandparents were. That has to do with this issue of migration and the reimagining of a new life here. It feels so big, you know, like you fulfilled your own, you know, dreams as a writer, and also your parents' dreams as people people looking forward for their own future and for yours. So, you know, I was, every time I have been at the celebración, it's a beautiful thing. I felt very touched and moved when I received the award, but really even when I don't receive an award, it's still a beautiful, touching experience. How about for you, Jenny? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you said it so well. I'm going to have trouble following up because that's exactly how I feel. I feel like it is, you mentioned, you know, like making your parents and your grandparents kind of feeling like you've done something for them in being recognized this way. And, you know, being the child of immigrants, one of the things I've always wanted to do is to honor my parents and those who came before me. And this award feels like that. It feels like family, and it feels like community, and it feels like you're getting that recognition from family and community. And from people who understand what the Latinx experience is and growing up Latinx. So yeah, it's very meaningful.
I think, you know, I'm going to add to that also. You're right. Like the notion of family, right, is really interesting in the Latinx, you know, community, because we're so widely diverse, right, across countries and races and cultures and economics and histories and so on. So, and yet it still feels like this calorcito, this connection with each other and this love for each other, and like honest to God joy when we see new people coming into the award, or the award growing like it did this year with the YA section and so on. That's beautiful stuff right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that we all come from different countries, you know, that have their own histories, their own traditions, and their own, you know, specific culture. But it still feels like like family, you know. It still feels like we have this shared experience, and when we come together and we recognize each other and this book community and literature that is written para nuestra gente, you know, and by us, it's really, it's touching and deeply meaningful. So yeah.
That's awesome. I think that like y'all are segueing to like the next question, to thinking about Pura Belpre, right, as a librarian that was dedicated to children and storytelling. And so why do you think it's important for today's children to have stories about the Latinx experience told by Latinx authors? And so I'll hand this over to you, Meg, first.
Oh my goodness. It is important today. It was important in Pura Belpre's time. It will be important forever for children to, all children, to know each other's stories, their own story and the story of the child sitting next to them in their classroom, in their church, or donde sea, right? And so, you know, Pura's life and her example is so incredible. And, you know, she was an Afro-Latina library, which is a whole other level, right? Of story and inclusion that we really have to look at in our community. What I love is that she decided, well, the books aren't there, so I'm going to bring the story through the oral tradition, which is so heavily part of our cultures, right, of our shared cultures. She made the path, right? And so she's a good example. Just her life is a good example of a Latina seeing the need, the space, and stepping into it with her power, right? With her voice and with all of her culture, everything, to face, you know, a deficit that she sees, right? That there aren't books for kids. But, you know, I just feel like we need to know ourselves with loving and proud eyes. And we need to have the stories known, you know, to all people.
Yeah, I agree. You know, like it's important to know where we come from. And one thing that my parents, you know, growing up, one thing that they always really instilled in me and wanted me to appreciate was not forgetting my roots and not forgetting where I come from and not, you know, forgetting those who came before me. So one thing, I mean, they always told me, you know, about all the things that they sacrificed in order for us to have the opportunities that me and my siblings had. And so I just feel like carrying on that tradition of letting, you know, young people know where we come from and letting them know our stories is important, so they don't forget. We can't lose that bit of ourselves, you know, even as we grow up in new countries and we have new traditions and we have new, you know, all new things. We can't forget the root of where we come from. So,
you know, I'm going to add to you. I'm wondering, Jenny, did your parents, like, were there lots of stories in your life, like about, I think your parents were from Guatemala, is that right? Or
my mom's from Guatemala and my dad's from El Salvador. And then my husband is Mexican, so in our household here, we have like all of that all blended together.
3 countries.
Yeah.
So yeah, my family was from Cuba, and so I feel like I had a lot of stories of just that, of who they were there, of what life was like there, of the values that they had developed there. And that felt like, you know, in the trauma of losing that, right, a lot of that transmission, I feel, is like a way to face trauma, right, of loss, of fear, of economic loss, of your identity. And so it's a weird space, right, being that generation of hyphenated child, right? Because you are of this country, right? Somos de aquí, as you say. We are not from here, but in a way, somos de aquí.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then we're also in some way from there. And I
Yes.
really felt that sort of strange disconnect because I didn't travel to Cuba, right?
Yeah.
It was cut off from us.
Right.
So Cuba for me was like a phantom limb.
Right.
It's a weird space. It's a weird space to have these hyphenated identities. And I think when I think of the kids in classrooms, I think that they're feeling those things too. You know?
Yeah, and I definitely felt that as a child. I felt, you know, when I went out in the world, I was like my friends. I was very American, right? And then as soon as I stepped foot inside my house, it was like I was stepping into this other world. You know, it was very much I don't know, I guess obviously like I took my myself everywhere. I was a Latina out there in the world, but it was very divided. You know, growing up, it can feel that way. It can feel very much like, okay, nobody really understands or knows the traditions or the ways that my parents are, or why they're so strict, or why they won't let me stay at somebody's house overnight, you know.
I'm still fighting about that.
The fights. So a lot of things, you know, my friends out there didn't understand about the way my parents were. And then a lot of things out there, my parents didn't understand why I wanted to be like that. No seas niña de calle. Why do you want to go out so much? This and that, you know? So it was difficult. And I think, at least growing up, I didn't read as much literature. I wasn't introduced to enough literature that kind of showed that inside part of my house out there. So in the classroom, I wasn't reading about Latinx familias. You know, in the classroom, I wasn't reading works from authors who had last names like Torres or Sanchez or whatever. And so I think us writing this type of literature and it being out there and it being more accessible to children, and hopefully teachers introducing it and bringing it into the classroom, helps that divide a bit for children growing up now.
Yeah, I think it addresses shame also. I you know, I'm considerably older than you, and I feel like when I was like really no había nada. I was a reader. I mean, I read Nancy Drew and Charlotte Jeffrey, todas esas cosas. I read, but I wasn't reading anything that sort of reflected back what my own reality was. And so the result was I was a good reader, but I was also a girl for a long time who felt sort of like that I had to get around my Latinidad to succeed.
Yeah.
Right? That it could be part of me, but this small part, that if I really wanted to succeed, I needed to lean into my American self, my English, my English literature reading, my fancy smancy ways of being, right? The things that my mother didn't understand or would roll her eyes out. Niña, ¿qué es eso? You know, like those things. Like I had to go, you know, and so what a waste of time.
I know.
And I'm ashamed that I was ashamed. Do you know, what I'm saying? Like it took so many years to unwork that. So that's another piece, that if we could save, like the Pura Belpré list, the existence of the award, the existence of these beautiful books, and not just Pura, you know, Las Americas, all the awards, like I think it helps spare children, perhaps, that sense of worthless, that shame, that
feeling that you can't be that you can't bring that part of yourself into your writing, into your books and whatever. No, I mean, I felt a lot of that as well growing up, you know, especially you know, I studied English literature. That was my major in school. And so it was very kind of like, oh, to be a serious, you know, literature student, or to be a serious writer, it was these types of works that you had to read, you know, and it didn't bring into, I felt like I had to kind of leave like my Latinx identity at the door, you know, because when I tried to bring it in, it wasn't what it was supposed to be serious and to be taken seriously.
Yeah, this is my argument with the canon that we keep pushing on children in high school, right? It's just, oh my gosh, it's the same books I read.
I know.
stuff has been written, people.
Mm-hmm.
30 years.
Yeah.
There's stuff. Go visit Cecilia, like go to a bookstore, check it out. There's so many great librarians that can point you to. So I feel like, I don't know, it's sort of like warfare. It's like I have to get in there and like say, and I had kids who of course, who went through high school. My kids are older now. But, their reading life was so crowded with that canon.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling really resentful. First of all, that there was so little room for recreational reading, just for their own life as people. But certainly that the choices that they were making for this massive amount of homework and so on was not, in my view, culturally sensitive, not to our culture and not to many other cultures either.
Right. Absolutely.
Sonia, we keep talking. I'm so sorry. This is
amazing. This is wonderful.
Of bringing us together.
I love it.
So this question is for Jenny. How has Meg's work inspired you or influenced you in your work?
Ooh, I'm such a fan of Meg's work. I was nervous for this conversation because I was like, oh, I get to speak to Meg Medina. I think it was seeing when I read Yaqui, and I wish I had these books as a teen. That's what I really wish. They didn't exist yet. And so when I read these books as an adult, I was like, man, if I'd read this as a teenager, it would make such a difference. If I read about Yaqui, if I read Burn Baby Burn, if I read, Merci Suarez when I was younger, it would have, I guess, given me this sense of validation. And it did that for me as an adult. It did that for me as a writer. It made me feel like we can tell these types of stories, and it's wonderful and it's beautiful and it's okay. And why haven't we been doing this? Or I mean, we have, but why hasn't this been as out there and as woven into like our curriculum and all of that kind of stuff before? It makes, when you read something like that and you connect with it, it makes it feel like it wasn't out there before because you're first discovering it. I cannot wait, Meg. I cannot wait to hand my youngest, my 7-year-old, Merci books, because I don't know, well, obviously you don't know this, but I live across the street from my mom and dad. And right down the street lives my sister. And so, yes, the cousins are always everywhere. We're always at my mom and dad's. My 7-year-old rides her bike up and down the street with my mom and dad waving at her from the driveway. And we just found out recently that my brother and his wife are having twins. So,
oh my goodness, they're like Tomasa and Axel.
Yes. And so I am just kind of like, oh my gosh, when she is about, 10, 11 years old, and she starts reading these types of books and she looks at her family, it's going to be such a mirror for her of what her life has been and what her life is. And it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me that young readers can come across that. It was amazing to me as an adult, and reading Meg's books, especially Burn Baby Burn, when I read of the setting is in New York, and I grew up. I was born in Brooklyn, but I grew up in Long Island, and there were so many familiar things to me, and I haven't been there in a while now. When I moved here to Florida when I was about 11 years old. But there were so many familiar things, the deli, just the interaction between people. And I was just like, wow, it's seeing myself, it's seeing my young self in your books. And I really love that.
Oh my goodness, Jenny, thank you. That's just lovely. I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say.
You say it all in your books, Meg. You do. You do.
Yes. But I would say that this is what I know at this point, because you're you know, you say, I can't believe I'm going to be on there with Meg, right? And so there's someone who's also saying, I can't believe I'm going to be on there with Jenny. And so your career is taking off. You have written beautiful books, most notably this one, We Are Not From Here, which was a study in character. It's lyrical, it's beautiful. You could do a masterclass in tension. My nerves were destroyed as I was reading the entire book. I was so worried for Pulga and Chica, and it was a stunning accomplishment. And so here's what I know, that we write these books and we may accept awards for them. And then what I say to people, especially in our community, is that then our job is to become part of the scaffolding for the next writers coming up.
Yeah.
And so I am so proud to be part of the scaffolding now for newer people coming after me. And I hope that you take your moment in the sun now, big, and enjoy every moment of it, and then figure out how to become part of the structure also for, you know, the person who's coming 5 years from now, maybe, you know, your daughter's age now, right? Coming, before you know it, they're here, you know, writing their story. But it's something. I mean, I'm standing on the shoulders of people who came before, you know, of the Julia Alvarez's, of, you know, Nicolás Amor, of people that I wasn't made aware of as a child, who were writing, but I wasn't made aware of those things, not by my teachers, not by my mom, nadie. And so I discovered them later on. And I had that weird feeling that we have, like the joy of discovering them, and then that sort of rage might be a little hard, but that sort of anger, like, ¿por qué? Why wasn't this part? This would have helped me. And so
that's what I felt. That's what I feel too, because I came to you know, your books and other Latinx literature. I came to it late, and it feels like, or I remember feeling like, this was out there, you know, this was out there when I was younger. Why didn't I, where was it? Why couldn't I find it? Why didn't I know it, you know? Which, you know, goes back to Pura Belpre and how beautiful it is that she was bringing that to children.
The librarians are at the backbone. The other ones that I think need to, and are increasingly stepping forward, I think, are the academics. The people, you know, the people in our community and outside of our community who study children's and YA literature. I think they need to turn their lens to look, because there's a lot being said within our books about the political histories. Like, you want to understand what the situation is right now with migration and immigration, they need to be reading We're Not From Here, right? Or they need to get a sense, and other books before that, like how conflicts have started, why, and the different perspectives of what leads people to be in different situations. And the immigration story is just one piece of it. Like, there's so many histories that our readers, that our writers are folding into children's books. And I think that academics would do really well to sort of unpack that and see and really study it. I don't know. That's my pitch is always that.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I'll say, both as an academic and as an emerging writer, both of you are super inspiring to, like, what I want my career to be in the future. And so again, thank you so much for what you're doing for our literature. And so this last question is just kind of taking us into, like, the future a little bit. So you both have written books that feature Latinx teens in our world today. And so what are some of the challenges or issues that teens face that you wish we saw more of in YA fiction?
Please go ahead, you first.
Thank you. I think that people are writing about everything. I really do kind of feel that, you know. My books tend to deal with characters who are going through really difficult situations, really difficult real life situations, about hard truths, about heavy things, you know. And I feel that, at least in my experience, that those books have been accepted, that they are, that there are readers who gravitate towards that there is a space for them. And I feel like throughout there's a whole spectrum, you know, from light and wonderful and funny and joyous to the darker, harder stuff in the world that really makes teens grapple with what our world is. So I feel like there is a lot of that literature out there already. What I think we need more of is more, you know, shining the light on different types of literature, not just, and I understand publishing is publishing, you know, but I understand why there's the commercial part of it, but there are many beautiful stories out there that I think that if we just put a little bit, you know, recognized or elevated a little bit more, it would be available to more readers. And so more than things, there's not enough, or there's this you know, gap or absence of a specific type of story. I think it's more, you know, some stories are just not given enough light.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback a little bit on that and just say that I don't feel like we've necessarily in publishing figured out how to market the works that are being created to a readership that includes all people, right, in terms of you know, mainstream readers, English dominant Latinos, Spanish dominant Latinos. Like there's all different ways of reaching these markets, and it's not just we can't just use the models that have been used earlier with, you know, when we were reaching one sort of general audience. That doesn't really make sense for our book. So I think that needs a little more sophistication. I think I'm very interested in intersections of identity. So I think that those things, I'd like to just continue to see books about those intersections, or that feature those intersections, you know, published more and promoted more. And I mean intersections around, you know, cultural identities, around racial identities, economics, LGBTQ plus, all of those kinds of things as it intersects with Latinidad.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I think to wrap up, I'm going to toss one last quick question at you, just because I think everybody watching will be really interested to hear the answer, which is there one either new or upcoming book that you'd like to shout out that you're excited to read? Something either that you've already read or that you haven't read and you just know is coming out. I am putting you on the spot for this. I apologize, but I'm a bookseller.
Oh gosh, yes, I
all the
really
time.
Oh, my mind goes completely blank. It goes blank when.
Yeah, maybe I can start. I can share one book that I'm
Sonia.
excited. It's a picture book by Hilda Eunice Burgos, The Cot in the Living Room. I wish I had it with me, and it's with illustrator Gaby de Alessandro, Afro-Latina, takes place in Washington Heights. I mean, it's such an adorable book about kindness and fairness. So that's one book I'm excited that I think everyone should read.
I can tell you one that I really enjoyed just very recently. I think it's called Your Mama by Muñeca Ramos. It's just such a celebration. It's and when you think of these lovey books, right, for moms or dads, you think it's going to be sappy somehow, like it's going to have a little level in there, but not this one. It's just so it's fun, it's direct, it feels really modern. I don't know, I just love it. And I'm a big fan of Muñeca's work, so I'd shine the light on that. And that's a fairly recent one. I think it came out in the last month or so. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that book. My little one, you know, we've read it a bunch of times together, and she, you know, one of the first things she said to me was like, "This is like us," you know, when we read it. So that's a beautiful book. my mind has gone completely blank, so I can't think of anything, but I'll tell you that I am really excited about whatever Aida Salazar writes next, because Land of the Cranes was one of the most beautiful books for middle grade readers that I've read in a long time. And it's the poetry in it, the writing, and making it like really accessible to young readers. And the way she tells this story of the hard truths of a child in a detention center, but the way that she does it without taking away the reality of it, but also not making it scary for a young reader to read. I was stunned by all the things she does in that book, and I am really excited about whatever she has coming out next. So.
Yeah, Aida has a new book, a collaboration called Never Forgotten, coming out from Levine Carrillo later on this summer. And I believe it's she's translating work from a Colombian author.
She is translating, yeah.
So I know that's her next a new project coming out from her soon. I'm excited to read that. Well, I guess I'm going to plug YA then, since we're covering most of our age groups here. But I'll plug Nina Moreno's upcoming book, Our Way Back to Always, which if you read her first YA book, Don't Date Rosa Santos, which takes place in a small Florida beach town, Port Coral. Her second book takes us back to Port Coral, so you get kind of the same wonderful depiction of community and all of the busybody neighbors who have an opinion about things going on. But it's a second chance romance. It's about two teens who were best friends as children, who had a falling out in middle school and haven't talked to each other for a really long time. And then circumstances bring them back together, and they decide to spend some time finishing the to-do list that they made as middle schoolers. So checking off all of the things that they thought would be the cool thing when you're a teen. So it's just got a really lovely sense of time passing, and how you change as a person and how you stay the same, and the connections that you make with people and that survive through all of the hard stuff and big decisions. Very, very fresh, very funny, lovely romance. So I highly recommend you pre-order that, preferably from my bookstore.
And don't forget Jenny's book. I think the Spanish, Jenny's book came out, and mine, of course, this year, but yours just came out in Español, right?
Yes. No somos Yaqui. It was so meaningful, because it's my fifth book. So I've had these other books, I was thinking the other day, I've almost been in publishing for 10 years now. And having this one in Spanish, because every one I wanted it to be translated, but it wasn't. And my parents being able to finally read it, and, that was just like, it was everything. Yeah.
It's beautiful, and it just connects with a wider, an ever wider group of people reading. It's exciting. I don't know. I think Medici Suarez Can't Dance is April, and I'm thinking that it's going to have a Spanish translation. I have my fingers crossed. The first one did. Merci Suarez se pone las pilas, which cracks me up every time I think of the
That is perfect. Yes. Oh my goodness.
The miracle of language. So se pone las pilas, and Alexis Romay was the translator. And I think he's going to be the translator for Merci Suarez Can't Dance. Y no sé, let's see what the title will be. I would say Merci Suarez no baila, pero I don't know. Alexis might have a better idea.
I love that.
Thank you both so much for joining us today. We're so grateful to you for taking the time. This has been such a lovely conversation and a great celebration of Pura Belpré and her work, and both of you and your work. And the ever-evolving state of Latinx children's literature here in this country. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye, guys.